And these two pieces was great because I measured. Obviously, you dry fit this. You stop your measurement at this little copper bump, and you figure out where it goes. So I was able to take these pieces off, hold them down with a piece of wood under the wood, and I was able to solder these 90s off of that washing machine with the bucket underneath, and just was able to just solder, rotate instead of sitting here. And that's why the wood's not burned, because just like him, you do that off the wood.
Right.
Anything you see with the wood is burned is where someone decided to do, decided to do that. So yes, this is a little bit more oomph because this is brass. Brass takes longer to heat than copper. So you had to add more because there was more of a, how do I say it, plumber's crack, because the two materials have a different void. Excuse the expression, but two pieces of copper tight. The brass in this was just like a little wonky, so that's why there's more juice, more solder in here. But there is one thing I will admit, because no one could prove it, but I will admit my flaws. I had the hot completely pressurized with no leaks. The cold, I had a PP. This is the cold, the top line. There's a T right here. See the T before the little stub? As soon as I turned on the cold, it hit the back wall. We shut it all down. Turns out that, for argument's sake, when you're heating this, you run the copper, and the copper goes around to the flame. And what you're supposed to do, which now talking to the plumber, so I'm going to reiterate some plumbing stuff, is you just don't kill it. You kind of hit it, you test it after a minute, and then you move the heat, because you don't want the copper to liquefy and then just drip down. So you kind of want it to adhere. So you kind of hit the heat, take it off, you kind of play with it that way. So I missed the angle. My head was, I missed it, and then another thing was, when he came here, he took out a knife, and I'm like, well, how would you test this? And he took a metal knife out and he banged on all the joints. And I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? He's like, well, that's how you test the joints, because who knows if there's a little pinhole if you don't move it. If you bang, rattle, and shake it, then it'll move the solder. So he's like, well, I'm here, hold on. And he banged on all my, he's like, fine with me, passes. Now what do you want to do about the water? And that's when we got into talking 7 different ways about doing it. He wanted to surface mount everything because it might have been easier. And I said, no. And then we got into the plumbing aspect of, no, I can't do that. You could do that, I can't do that. And this is the end result. The air vents are because, as a plumber, you need to put water behind waste. Every trap needs before it, not after it. That's it. So I guess, well, 1 win for the homeowner and a half a win for the homeowner and the plumber, because
the idea was right, and as a homeowner doing the job yourself, there's bound to be some snafus, which, by the way, are situation normal, all fucked up.
He did like the solder. He says, as a plumber, after 35 years, his solder would not look like that. He says, but it's a basement, you're a homeowner. He says that is definitely...
As far as I'm concerned, it's fine. It doesn't leak, and that's the main thing.
There's nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with it.
If
it's a little messy like that,
right.
Yeah.
And that's it. So the copper was done. Everything was tested. Now, let's get into why this is not level. So I had this all out. I had the laser out. I had the block. Thank God I didn't secure the block, because that block is flush mount with the 2x4 and the flat. This I had flush mount. When I put the first copper piece down, I said, oh wait, it's hitting the top. I said, oh wait, this is set in. So I hammered this in. Obviously, you took a piece, used a circular saw, cut it outside. So now this is flush with the drywall. So great, now the copper at this angle, both angles are straight up and down. So I measured, let's just say 16. I cut it, I put it in, and it raises it. I read the measuring tape upside down. So
right.
So it was 16 and a half, straight up like this. Upside down, it's 16 and
14 and a quarter.
Right, because the millimeters is on the top, right? There's
Yeah.
right. So when I cut it, which is not a hacksaw, I have the turning rotation. These are all flat, professional, reamed out cuts. So that's why it's 1.5 inches higher, because the first piece was, and I said, you know what? As a homeowner, I'm not wasting the copper. I said, it's a basement. I have a story behind it. That's why it's unlevel. And the plumber, the first two things, let me tell you exactly how it happened. Let me get my stuff. Okay, come down. Mask comes down. Hat goes like this. I'm confused. Didn't you tell me that I was doing this? I said, yes, I'm standing there. I said, unfortunately, I did it. I put in that valve many years ago. I said, you're coming anyway. What's the worst case? This is not here. So he walked in. You know, I like you, so I'm going to tell you how I feel. First of all, your valve is not level. I said, well, and I told him the story.
Right.
He's like, well, as a plumber, we have tons of this, so I would have made it level, but if you're happy, you did it, you're the homeowner. And, oh, okay. We're talking like,
Yeah, he's really
bang,
hitting it.
bang. He's like, all right. So, do you want me to tell you what you did, why it looks drippy? I said, well, why? Okay. Too much heat. Not knowing when to take the heat off and letting the solder
do its job as it is.
And what you wipe it with. I said I had a rag and the flux brush. No, you don't use the flux brush, because once it smells and it gets in the whole house. I said, it's my house. 2, you burn the brush. Then after you keep burning it, then you don't have a brush left. And then 3, you know, the best way is you go to someone's house and you take the yellow insulation. This is the best cleaning thing because of the fiberglass.
Huh.
And a real old school person will have a chunk of that in a bucket, and you swipe it away, and that's when you get these tight welding looking pieces.
Right.
I said, okay. He's like, but you did this? All right. So what do you need me for? And I'm like, I want to do the water. And then we got into the semantics of the water.
All right, enough with the small talk. It's time to get the tools of destruction. We're not going to do a full wash cycle. We're just going to turn them on, let them agitate for a couple of minutes. They both slip into spin. We know this. Maybe in the future, maybe not in the future. We'll figure it out. It's going to turn the water on, and set it to 10 minutes, and then we'll manually advance the timer. So that's on warm, that's on warm. Let's just do cold. Okay, just to see what happens. Still better than mine. But it's the same principle. It's teed off rather than wide. It's the same principle. So they're both filling. It's a little weird with the side opening lids because you can't like wait, you know. So I don't know. It worked. So that's it. So we'll just do cold. Both are set on large, 1 rinse, heavy duty, fast. And we'll let these fill up and start agilating, and that's the deal.